I have discovered that the most powerful tool in the universe is not found in the physical, but in the unseen realm of the mind. I have come to realize that imagination is not a mere mental escape or idle fantasy. It is the creative force behind everything I experience. Everything I touch, see, and call reality began first as an invisible image within consciousness. And once I truly understood this, I could no longer take any thought lightly, nor could I dismiss any inner picture as insignificant. Imagination creates reality. Not in theory, not as a hopeful idea, but as a living law. What I dare to imagine with feeling and persistence becomes the mold through which the formless takes form. I am not a passive observer of life. I am its author. And the script I write begins in the stillness of my mind. Before anything shows up in my world, it must first take shape in the inner world of imagination. I must feel it, believe it, and walk in it, even when the world gives no evidence. When I say imagination creates reality, I do not mean this metaphorically. I mean it literally. The house I live in, the relationships I enjoy, the success I achieve, the wealth I hold, all of it is shaped and summoned by the images I continuously entertain. The inner man creates the outer world. The world I experience is nothing more than a reflection of the state I occupy within. When I live from a state of lack, I see lack. When I dwell in the feeling of wealth, the world reflects abundance. There is no exception. There was a time when I believed I had to work harder, do more, and push against circumstances to change my life. But now I know outer effort is powerless if it contradicts my inner assumptions. If I labor without first imagining success, I plant seeds on stone. But if I dare to imagine fully and walk in the knowing of my success before the world shows it, then all I do will be guided and fruitful. It is not the action that creates. It is the consciousness behind the action. I used to think imagination was a private dream with no consequence. But imagination is a bridge. It connects the invisible to the visible, the spiritual to the material. When I imagine, I am not pretending, I am planting. Each thought, when persisted in, is a seed, and every seed produces after its kind. Imagine fear, and fear comes. Imagine love, and love arrives. Imagine success, and success takes shape. The law cannot be fooled or escaped. I always reap what I imagine. And so I ask myself, what am I imagining now? What state am I occupying? Because my outer world cannot rise above my inner assumption. If I wish to change my life, I must first change my imagination of life. If I wish to experience wealth, I must first assume the feeling of being wealthy. Not someday, not in theory, but now. I must close my eyes and see the life I choose to live. I must feel its reality and walk in it mentally. I must hear the voices congratulating me, feel the texture of the reward in my hands, and know it to be done, even while nothing has yet changed. This is not delusion, it is creation. I am not waiting for the world to give me proof. The world is not the cause, it is the result. Imagination is the cause, the world is the shadow. If I attempt to change the shadow while ignoring the light source, I labor in vain. But when I go to the light, when I enter the inner chamber of thought and picture myself as I choose to be, then the shadow must conform. Every great thing I have achieved began in silence. It began in an unseen vision I dared to believe in. I would go there in my mind so often that it became more real to me than the facts around me. And then, in the most natural way, life rearranged itself. People, places, events, all shifted to reflect the image I held within. I did not force it. I simply persisted in the inner picture until the outer world caught up. I do not concern myself with how it will happen. That is not my domain. My only task is to imagine and feel it real, to live as though it already is, to sleep in the assumption that it is done. The how belongs to the unseen intelligence that responds to my inner state, and it responds with perfect precision. There is no power outside of consciousness, no luck, no coincidence, only imagination, shaping everything according to the images I entertain. I no longer ask if something is possible, I ask if I can imagine it. For if I can imagine it, feel it, and persist in it, then it must become my experience. This is the secret I carry with me. I do not speak of it often, for it is too sacred to be casually shared. But to those ready to hear, I say this: go within, see the life you choose to live. Feel it in full detail. Return to it daily. Let no contrary evidence shake your knowing. The outer world may take time to adjust, but adjust it will. For imagination fused with belief is the force that creates worlds, and you, through your imagination, are the creator of your reality. Winning the lottery captures the imagination of millions because it represents sudden freedom, abundance, and the ability to live without limits. Yet few realize that the actual winning ticket is not something to be found in a store or machine. It is already within. The outer prize, the numbers matched, the money received, these are symbols, symbols of a deeper inner reality. They represent the reflection of a state of consciousness. Without that inner state, the outer result cannot appear. The world moves in harmony with the consciousness that shapes it. Every experience, every event, every so-called chance occurrence is the result of a state that has been assumed, whether consciously or unconsciously. The lottery win is not magic, it is manifestation. And manifestation is never outside in, it is always inside out. To understand this is to break the illusion of luck. It is not about hoping, wishing, or desperately trying to make something happen. It is about alignment. When a person lives in a state of wealth, feels wealth, breathes it, thinks from it rather than of it, then that state must outpicture itself in the physical world. The external result, be it a paycheck, a business deal, or even a winning lottery ticket, must show up to match the inner condition. It is law. Money in any form is energy. It gravitates to the one who is already rich in mind, the one who walks in a state of abundance before the evidence appears. To think of wealth while feeling poor creates conflict. But to think from wealth while embodying its feeling, this creates alignment. That alignment becomes the channel through which all forms of wealth, including a lottery win, can flow. Too often, desire is filled with anxiety. The thought of winning the lottery brings hope, yes, but also fear, disbelief, and lack. One may visualize the win, but still feel the absence of it. That feeling of absence becomes the true assumption, and so the outer world continues to reflect the absence. The key is not in the desire itself. The key is in the shift of state. One must stop chasing and start becoming. The lottery win is a symbol of a new state of being. It is not about the ticket. It is about the transformation. The one who wins is already different within. That person has changed how they see themselves. They do not wait for the win to feel rich. They feel rich, and then the win arrives. Imagination plays the central role in this inner shift. To step into a new state, one must see from it, not toward it. Rather than standing outside of the dream, longing to enter, one must mentally walk into it and occupy it. What would life feel like after the win? Not in the moment of victory, but in the days and weeks after, when the excitement has passed and normalcy returns. That feeling, that tone, is the door. Enter it. Many speak of the law of attraction, but misunderstand its depth. It is not about drawing things to a person through desire. It is about resonance. What is experienced outwardly is the echo of what is believed inwardly. The lottery win does not come to make one feel rich. Feeling rich is what opens the path for the win to occur. The inner must always lead. No one can cheat this process. The world is a perfect mirror. Pretending to feel wealth while secretly holding fear or disbelief will not produce lasting change. The shift must be genuine. This is not forced by willpower. It is cultivated through imagination, repetition, and surrender. The imagined scene must be lived with such intensity that it begins to feel more real than the current circumstance. When this happens, the inner world has changed. And when the inner world changes, the outer must follow. Some may ask, why the lottery? Why this symbol? Because it carries within it the idea of transformation without effort. But the truth is, effort is still required. Not on the outside, but within. The work is internal. The restructuring of self-intim, the dissolving of doubt, the acceptance of wealth not as a possibility, but as an identity. This is the true labor, and it is sacred. The win is not the goal. The state is, the money is not the prize, the transformation is. Because once the state of abundance is stabilized, life will bring wealth in countless forms, not only through the lottery, but through unexpected channels, generous people, inspired ideas, and new opportunities. The outer must yield to the inner, and the inner is always determined by the state one chooses to occupy. To those who ask whether it is truly possible to win the lottery through inner work alone, the answer is yes, but not through desperation or force, through assumption, through the quiet certainty that what is felt within, with persistence, must become fact. The numbers, the drawing, the timing, these are details the mind cannot calculate. But the feeling, the state, that is within reach at every moment, and once entered into fully, the path will form. Symbols are powerful, but they are only doors. What lies beyond the door is always a new version of self, and once that self is accepted and felt as real, the symbols will appear, the ticket will come, the win will come, but by that time the person will already be the winner, not because of what they receive, but because of who they have become. There is a secret known to few and misunderstood by many. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the gateway through which all things are manifested. The great mistake is in waiting for the outer world to provide a reason to feel successful, abundant, or fulfilled. But the law is reversed. Only when the feeling is assumed before the evidence appears does the evidence arise. The moment one assumes the feeling of already having won, reality begins its silent reorganization. This principle is not about fantasy or daydreaming. It is about assuming a state of consciousness so fully, so deeply, that the line between inner reality and outer fact dissolves. It is not enough to merely think about winning, to visualize it like a spectator. One must inwardly occupy the state of having already won. To feel from it, not toward it, is the key. When this feeling is assumed with conviction, the unseen mechanisms of life begin to move. The outer world is a reflection, a delayed echo of the inner world. And the inner world is governed not by words or affirmations alone, but by sustained feeling. The heart is the instrument of creation. Thought sets the direction, but feeling gives it power. A fleeting desire without emotional charge is a spark that never becomes a flame. But when a desire is fused with the feeling of its fulfillment, it becomes a living reality within. And that reality must project itself outward. To assume the feeling of already having won is to bypass doubt. It is to live in a world where the outcome is certain. The questions disappear, the effort to make it happen dissolves, and all that remains is a quiet knowing. In this state, the future is not something to strive for. It becomes a present truth expressed inwardly before it appears outwardly. Many wait for circumstances to change before allowing themselves to feel successful, but the feeling must come first. No seed waits for the fruit before it takes root. So, too, must the feeling of having won be planted long before any evidence arises. This is not tricking the mind, it is aligning with truth. For everything that will be already exists in the invisible. It is brought into visibility through assumption. This assumption must be natural. It must not be strained or forced. It should feel like slipping into a garment that fits perfectly. The mind, when quieted, will accept it without resistance. One simply enters the feeling and lives from it. The more this is done, the more natural it becomes. And what is natural within must become natural without. The feeling is the secret ingredient that turns imagination into manifestation. Without it, visualization is hollow. With it, the imagined scene becomes alive. The body responds, the breath shifts, the heartbeat quickens, not in fear or hope, but in joyful recognition of what already is. The feeling of victory, of possession, of fulfillment. This must be carried and worn like invisible clothing, and life will respond accordingly. Some may wonder how to create such a feeling when nothing yet appears to justify it. But this is the great leap. The feeling must be generated from within. Independent of the senses, one must become deaf to the outer world for a time and listen only to the inner voice. One must choose the reality desired and then feel it real, even when everything contradicts it. This is not delusion, this is creation at its purest. To assume the feeling of already having won is to become a new version of self. It is not simply about attracting a prize, but about embodying a state. That state, once accepted as true, reshapes thoughts, behavior, decisions, and circumstances. Everything begins to conform to the new identity, and that identity is always born from feeling. It is easy to want, but wanting keeps the desired thing distant. The feeling of want implies lack. To say, "I want to win," is to admit not having, but to feel as though the win has already occurred is to declare it done. In that declaration, silently and inwardly made, lies the creative power. The moment one accepts the feeling as natural, life must reflect it. This is why repetition is so essential, not mechanical repetition of words, but the repeated assumption of the feeling. Each time the mind wanders back to doubt or desire, gently return it to the feeling of having already received. This discipline of inner attention is the true work. Outer results may vary in timing, but they cannot resist the inner state forever. Sleep is a powerful doorway. Before drifting into unconsciousness, the feeling of the wish fulfilled must be the last impression. In this drowsy state, the subconscious mind is most receptive. The scene of fulfillment, entered with feeling before sleep, begins to work beneath the surface, and day by day the world is reformed to match the inner conviction. To assume the feeling is to become the person who already has what was once desired, no longer hoping, no longer seeking, but living from the end. And from this end, the bridge of events begins to form. These events may appear natural, logical, or even unrelated, but all are connected. All are servants of the assumption held within. The great secret is not in changing the world, but in changing the state through which the world is viewed. And that change begins with one simple but profound act, assuming the feeling of already having won and trusting it more than the evidence of the senses. There is a silent power that governs the unseen bridge between desire and its fulfillment, and that power is persistence in imagination. It is not the scattered image that shapes reality, nor the occasional visualization done half-heartedly, but the unwavering commitment to remain faithful to the vision long after the senses declare it impossible. Imagination, when sustained, becomes creation. And the one who persists, despite appearances, doubts, or delays, is the one who will see the invisible made visible. Imagination is not a tool of escape. It is the instrument of truth. It reveals the world not as it seems, but as it could be, if believed in. But belief is not a momentary spark. It must be nourished like a flame. One cannot visit the imagined end briefly and expect it to unfold. One must dwell in it, live in it, persist in it with the calm certainty that what is felt within, if held with devotion, must eventually take shape without. This persistence is not forced. It is not about straining or trying harder. It is about returning again and again to the assumption of the fulfilled desire. Every time the outer world seems to contradict the inner vision, it becomes an invitation not to react in fear, but to reaffirm the truth within. To say with confidence, "This too shall pass, for I know what I have imagined." In that still knowing, the foundation is laid. Many begin the journey of imagination with excitement, only to abandon it when results do not come quickly. But reality bends to the persistent, not the impatient. The law does not operate on fleeting interests. It responds to deep conviction. The moment one gives up and turns away, the creation that was forming begins to dissolve. It is not the world that fails to respond. It is the mind that ceases to hold the image steady. To persist is to anchor consciousness in the desired end, regardless of what the senses report. The eyes may see lack, the ears may hear discouragement, the body may feel the absence of what is wanted. Yet the one who persists ignores these signals, not from ignorance, but from mastery. That mastery lies in understanding the deeper truth. The senses reflect what has been assumed, not what is being assumed now. And by remaining faithful to the new assumption, the outer must eventually change. Every act of persistence strengthens the bridge between the inner and outer. Each time the imagined scene is revisited, refelt, and reaffirmed, its foundation becomes firmer. It becomes not a possibility, but a certainty. The mind begins to organize thoughts and emotions around it. The body responds as if it were already true, and in time the world follows. This persistence must be practiced in both silence and activity. In the quiet moments of reflection, the desired scene must be played over and over, not mechanically, but vividly, with full sensory richness and emotional involvement. In the busy hours of the day, though the focus may shift to other tasks, the underlying state must remain. A gentle undercurrent of knowing quietly guiding every word, action, and thought. There will be moments when the old beliefs rise again, doubts, fears, past disappointments. They will come to test the new state. But they are not enemies. They are remnants of the former self, fading shadows of what used to be believed. And they can only linger if given attention. The one who persists simply observes them, then returns to the vision, not out of resistance, but out of preference. The new state is chosen again, and in choosing it repeatedly, it becomes dominant. The imagination is the workshop of reality. What is built there, when persisted in, becomes the house in which life dwells. But like any building, it requires time, focus, and repetition. One brick laid once is not a wall, but bricks laid daily, consistently, will soon create a structure strong enough to stand against any storm. So too does persistence in imagination build the framework for outer change. This is the quiet path, the unseen labor, the hidden discipline of the awakened Creator. While the world rushes, complains, and doubts, the one who understands persists silently within, unshaken, calm. Not waiting for signs, but becoming the sign. Not hoping for change, but embodying the change. The desired end is not just imagined. It is felt as real, lived inwardly, and returned to with love until it becomes second nature. To persist is to believe when there is no reason to feel when nothing around confirms it, to stand in the unseen and declare it finished. This is not delusion, this is alignment with the higher law. For what is imagined and persisted in with faith must one day become fact. It cannot be otherwise. And when that day arrives, when the outer world reflects the inner vision, there will be no surprise, only a quiet recognition. For the one who persists knows the truth before the world does. The lottery win, the promotion, the healing, the relationship, all of it is born first in imagination, and the one who remains loyal to the imagined end, in calm and confident persistence, is the one who holds the key to creation. It is easy to believe that the outer world is a series of random events, circumstances beyond control, or a product of external forces. Many are taught to look outward for validation, for answers, or for evidence that things are improving. But the truth is far deeper and more empowering than most realize. The outer world is not the cause of our experiences, it is merely the effect. The cause lies within, the unseen world of thought, feeling, and imagination. The law is simple. What is held internally must eventually express externally. The outer world is a reflection of the inner state. Everything that occurs in physical reality is the manifestation of a state of consciousness. Thoughts, beliefs, and emotions are the seeds that, when planted and nurtured, grow into the events and experiences of life. This law is not bound by time, space, or external circumstances. It operates consistently, unfailingly, and invisibly. The world you see around you is the result of what you have believed to be true, whether you were conscious of it or not. When one understands this, the perspective shifts dramatically. Life is no longer something that happens to you. You are not a passive observer, waiting for external forces to dictate your fate. Instead, you become the conscious creator, the one who shapes reality by the inner world. The events that unfold in your life are not random. They are a direct expression of the assumptions you hold and the state of mind you choose to live in. It is easy to look at challenges, setbacks, or circumstances that seem unfavorable and believe they are an indication of your limitations. But the power lies not in the outer situation, it lies in the assumption that was held before the situation arose. For every circumstance, no matter how difficult it may appear, is the product of an assumption made at some point. The world does not dictate what happens to you. You, through your inner beliefs and assumptions, dictate what the world will reflect back. The key to unlocking this power is to recognize that the world of the senses, the world that you can see, hear, touch, and taste, is a mere effect of the inner world. The external world is an echo, a mirror, a projection of the thoughts and feelings that reside within you. What you are experiencing right now is not an accident or a result of external factors. It is the result of the consciousness you have been living in. The process of change, then, begins from within. It is not about changing the external circumstances directly, but about changing the internal state from which those circumstances arise. If you want to see a different world, you must first see yourself differently. If you want a different reality, you must first assume a different state of mind. And that state of mind must be sustained until it becomes the dominant one. The world will reflect back the assumptions you hold consistently. If you assume you are poor, the world will reflect poverty. If you assume you are unworthy, the world will reflect rejection. If you assume you are lucky and capable of manifesting anything you desire, the world will reflect abundance and success. The external circumstances, however large or small, always correspond to your internal assumptions. The most profound understanding is that these assumptions do not require the validation of the outer world. It is the inner conviction, the deep, unshakable belief, that shapes the experience. The mind, with its conscious and subconscious layers, does not differentiate between what is real or imagined. To the subconscious, if it is vividly felt and believed, it becomes true. This is why people who persist in negative thoughts often see their negative assumptions reflected in their lives. Likewise, those who choose to believe in a different reality, one of wealth, health, or success, will begin to see that reality emerge. The outer world simply follows suit. It has no other option. It is like a canvas that takes shape based on the brush strokes applied to it. And you are the artist, painting your world with each thought and belief you hold. When you realize that your inner state is the cause and the outer world is the effect, a powerful shift occurs. You stop waiting for external circumstances to change before you take action. Instead, you begin to create your world by changing your internal reality first. Imagine living with the understanding that every person, event, and situation you encounter is a mirror reflecting your own state of consciousness. This realization can be profoundly liberating. No longer will you be a victim of circumstance. You will become the cause of your own experiences. You will no longer look at the world as something to control, but as a reflection of your own inner assumptions. To change your outer reality, begin by assuming a new inner state. Assume that you are already the person you wish to be, already living the life you wish to have. Live from that state, not in the future tense, but in the present. Feel it, believe it, and act as if it is already true. As you persist in this assumption, the outer world must adjust to match the new inner state. What was once invisible will slowly become visible. What was once absent will soon be present. This is the law of cause and effect in its most profound form. The outer world is the effect of the inner state. Change the inner cause, and the outer effect must follow. The outer world, with all its apparent chaos and unpredictability, is simply a mirror to the thoughts and beliefs you hold within. When you change your assumptions, you change the reflection. And when the reflection changes, the world around you will no longer seem so out of control. You will see it as it truly is, a reflection of your inner state, responding to your every belief, assumption, and thought. The common belief in the world is that action is the primary force that shapes reality. People often believe that effort, hard work, and physical movement are what bring about change. However, this viewpoint overlooks a far more powerful force, the creative power of the imagination. It is not the external actions that create the conditions of life, it is the internal visions and assumptions held in the mind. Imagination, when fully understood and applied, has the ability to shape reality more effectively than any outward effort. This principle might be difficult to grasp for many who have been conditioned to believe that action is the primary agent of change. But the truth is, all physical action is the result of a mental process. Before any external action can take place, the mind first forms an image of what it wishes to accomplish. The external world does not dictate the inner state. It is the inner state that dictates the outer world. To change what is seen, one must first change what is unseen. And this begins with the imagination. The creative process starts with the mind's ability to form vivid pictures of desired outcome. These mental images, when consistently imagined with emotion and belief, begin to take root in the subconscious mind. Once the subconscious accepts these images as reality, it begins to bring about corresponding conditions in the external world. The body moves in accordance with the mental image, and external circumstances begin to shift to align with the imagined state. But it is the imagination that precedes all of this. It is the first cause, the origin of everything that appears in the physical world. The power of imagination is not limited by physical laws or circumstances. It transcends the material world and operates on a higher level of reality. The imagination does not have to be bound by what is seen or known in the present moment. It can reach into the realm of infinite possibilities, creating new outcomes and experiences that have not yet manifested. This is the power that allows people to manifest desires, to change their lives, and to shape their world in ways that seem impossible from the standpoint of external reality. One must understand that the material world is a reflection of the inner world. What is imagined with feeling and belief eventually becomes externalized. Imagination is not just a tool for daydreaming or wishful thinking. It is the very substance of creation. It is the force that forms the blueprint of reality. By persistently imagining the desired outcome, a person aligns their internal state with that outcome, and the external world must rearrange itself to match the inner vision. The mistake many people make is in thinking that they must act first in the physical world to create change. While action may be necessary to some extent, it is the imagination that sets the direction for the action. Without a clear mental picture, without a vivid image of the desired outcome, actions are often aimless and ineffective. It is the imagination that provides the clarity and guidance needed for meaningful action to take place. When the mind is clear on the desired outcome, action flows naturally and effortlessly, with purpose and intent. When someone imagines themselves already in possession of what they desire, they are aligning themselves with the creative forces of the universe. The more vivid and real the imagination becomes, the more it impresses itself upon the subconscious mind, which then orchestrates the necessary events, circumstances, and actions that will bring about the desired result. The outer world must eventually conform to the inner image, as the subconscious mind works tirelessly to bring that image into materialization. This is not to say that action is unimportant, but rather that it is secondary to imagination. Without the proper mental framework, actions may be misguided or ineffective. The creative force comes from the inner world of the mind and imagination, and the outer world follows suit. Therefore, the key to manifesting desires, whether it be success, love, wealth, or any other goal, is to start with the imagination. When the imagination is fully engaged, when the desired outcome is felt as real and true in the mind, the universe has no choice but to respond. One of the greatest misunderstandings is that a person must take immediate action in the physical world in order to make their desires a reality. While action may be required at some point, the initial step is always the imagination. The physical world operates in harmony with the mind, not the other way around. This means that the first and most important action is the internal one, imagining and believing in the desired outcome as already having been achieved. Once the imagination has been fully engaged and the mental image has been accepted as true, action will naturally follow. It will not feel forced or difficult, but instead will flow with ease and clarity. The body and mind will be guided by the internal image, and the steps necessary to bring the vision to life will present themselves effortlessly. The key is to align the inner world with the desired outcome, and the outer world will follow naturally, without struggle or unnecessary effort. The most important thing to understand is that the power to change one's life lies within. It is not external circumstances, the actions of others, or the forces of fate that control one's reality. It is the imagination that holds the power. The ability to create and shape reality begins with the mind's ability to imagine, and once this is fully realized and understood, the outer world will begin to respond accordingly. The power of imagination is the first cause of everything that manifests in life. And when one learns to harness this power, anything is possible. The key to manifesting desires lies in the ability to live in the end. It is not enough to wish for something or to hope for it. Desiring alone will not bring the desired result. One must learn to live as if the desire has already been fulfilled, to embody the feeling of already having what is wanted. This shift in perspective is essential to bringing the inner vision into external reality. The process of manifestation begins not with action, but with assumption, the assumption that the end result is already true. The one who can live in the end will find that everything required to bring that end about will flow effortlessly. To live in the end is to assume the desired outcome is already achieved, and to feel that achievement deeply and genuinely. It is not about waiting for the circumstances to change before feeling the desired result, but rather about feeling the desired outcome in the present moment, as if it has already occurred. When the mind accepts that the end is already fulfilled, the outer world must adjust to reflect that internal state. This principle is not about manipulating external events, but about altering one's internal state to match the end result. The key to understanding this process lies in the realization that everything in life is a reflection of the inner state. The outer world is not a separate, independent entity. It is a mirror of the assumptions, beliefs, and feelings held within. The moment one assumes the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the world begins to reflect that assumption. But this must be done with unwavering faith, with the deep knowing that the desire is already part of one's experience. The law is not a matter of time or external factors. It is a matter of the state of mind. Living in the end is not about visualizing the desired result as something distant, something to come in the future. It is about bringing that future into the present. When one imagines the desired result, it must be imagined as if it has already been achieved. The feeling of having it now must be real, vivid, and tangible. This is not about hope or wishful thinking, but about assumption, an assumption that the end is already a part of the present reality. For example, if one desires wealth, it is not enough to visualize a pile of money or to imagine the lifestyle that money could bring. Instead, one must imagine what it would feel like to already have the wealth. What would the thoughts be? What emotions would arise? What actions would be taken in the present moment as a wealthy person? These are the questions that guide the process of living in the end. The mind must be fully engaged in the feeling of already having the wealth, and that feeling must be maintained as if it is the current reality. This practice goes beyond mere mental exercise. It is a complete shift in consciousness. To live in the end is to embody the end result completely. It is not about forcing or striving for the result, but about assuming it as already true and feeling it deeply. The end result does not exist in the future. It exists now, in the present moment. The feeling of fulfillment, success, love, health, or whatever the desire may be, is already available in the mind. The challenge is not to obtain it, but to accept it as already yours. When the mind accepts the end result as a present reality, the outer world must align itself accordingly. The process of living in the end requires one to let go of doubt, fear, and resistance. It requires faith in the unseen, in the power of imagination, and in the law that governs creation. The mind must be trained to remain focused on the desired end, regardless of the current circumstances. This is where many fail, because they are tempted to judge the outer world based on current appearances. But appearances are deceptive. They are simply the result of past assumptions. The only reality that matters is the assumption that is held in the present moment. When the present assumption matches the desired end, the outer world must reflect that state. To live in the end also means to make decisions, take actions, and move through life as though the desired outcome has already occurred. This does not mean forcing actions or pretending. It means that one's thoughts, actions, and behaviors are in alignment with the state of having already achieved the goal. The body will follow the mind's direction, and actions will naturally align with the assumption. This alignment of thought and action creates a powerful momentum that moves the individual toward the realization of the desire. It is important to understand that living in the end does not require any effort to manipulate circumstances. There is no need to force or struggle to make things happen. The process is natural. Once the inner state has been shifted, the outer world will naturally conform to the assumption. This is why it is called living in the end, because the end result is already a part of the present moment, and the world must reflect it. The law of assumption is the mechanism through which this process unfolds. By assuming the desired result as true and living from that assumption, the outer world must adjust to reflect it. This is not a matter of chance or external manipulation. It is a law, an immutable, unbreakable law of nature. The only requirement is that the assumption is maintained with persistence, with unwavering faith that the end result is already true. Living in the end requires a shift in perspective, a shift from seeing the desire as something to be attained in the future to seeing it as something that already exists in the present. This shift is the key to unlocking the power of manifestation. The world does not have to change to fulfill the desire. The inner state must change first. And once that change occurs, the outer world will follow suit. To live in the end is to realize that the present moment is the only reality. The future is simply an extension of the present moment, shaped by the assumptions held in the now. When the end result is assumed as already true, the future will unfold in harmony with that assumption. This is the power of living in the end, the power to create the reality one desires, not through external effort, but through the internal realization of the desired outcome. Creation begins where feeling takes root. It is not the mere image or thought of a thing that brings it to life. It is the emotional charge behind it, the subconscious mind. The creative power responsible for outpicturing reality responds not to idle words or fleeting hopes, but to sustained emotional conviction. Feeling is the bridge between the imagined and the material. It is the ingredient that turns a concept into an experience. Until a desire is felt as real, deeply and emotionally, it remains a shadow of potential, waiting for the warmth of belief to bring it to life. This is the great secret behind all manifestation. The emotion behind the thought is what gives it life. Words spoken without feeling fall flat. Visualizations without emotion remain unplanted seeds. But when an idea is soaked in the richness of genuine feeling, it imprints upon the subconscious mind, which then accepts it as truth. And once accepted, it begins its silent work to make that truth visible. The subconscious does not differentiate between what is imagined and what is experienced in the outer world. It operates by feeling. It accepts that which is consistently impressed upon it through emotional intensity. Whether that impression is built upon joy, gratitude, fear, or lack, it does not question. It merely receives and expresses. Thus, the emotions cultivated most often become the architects of one's reality. To change a condition, one must first change the feeling behind the thought. This is why it is not enough to simply repeat affirmations or visualize desired outcomes. The question is not whether a thought is repeated, but whether it is believed. And belief is measured not by words, but by feeling. The deeper the emotional engagement, the more potent the impression on the subconscious. Feeling wraps the idea in reality. It tells the inner mind, this is true, and the inner mind responds, so be it. Desires are not fulfilled through desperation, longing, or hoping for change. These states merely reinforce lack. Hoping acknowledges the absence of the desired. Longing emphasizes distance. Desperation breeds resistance. But when one moves into the emotional state of already having, already being, already receiving, then the subconscious is moved into creation. It must fulfill the feeling it has been impressed with. To illustrate, imagine the difference between saying, I want to be wealthy with a sigh, and feeling the richness of wealth with all senses engaged. The former whispers of lack, the latter pulses with presence. One speaks from the absence of the goal, the other speaks as if the goal is fulfilled. Only the second has creative power. Only the second engages the subconscious. It is essential, then, to cultivate the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is not fantasy, this is alignment. To walk through the day with the inner knowing that the desire is already accomplished is to instruct the subconscious to arrange all necessary conditions to reflect that truth. The outer world will comply not through struggle, but through the unseen arrangement of circumstances, ideas, opportunities, and people. This is not the realm of control or logic, it is the realm of faith and feeling. Many misunderstand and believe that emotion must be loud, dramatic, or overwhelming, but that is not so. Feeling can be quiet and still, yet profoundly powerful. A subtle knowing, a gentle joy, a deep calm certainty, these two are feelings that impress. What matters is not intensity, but sincerity and consistency. The subconscious does not require spectacle, it only needs conviction. The greatest change comes not when one begs for it, but when one assumes it. To assume the feeling of the fulfilled desire is to dwell in the result before it appears. And the more real the feeling, the sooner the appearance. The feeling must not be forced, it must be invited. It grows with repetition. As one returns again and again to the emotional state of the fulfilled desire, the inner mind is saturated with that impression until it has no choice but to outpicture it. Emotional discipline becomes vital. One must guard against the unintentional planting of negative feelings. Every feeling repeated becomes a seed, and the harvest is determined by what has been sown. Feelings of fear, doubt, worry, and anger, if indulged too often, must bring forth conditions to match them. The subconscious is impartial. It simply reflects what it has been given. Thus, the task is to feel deliberately, to feel wisely, to choose the emotional states that build the life desired. Gratitude is one of the most powerful emotional states, for it implies receipt. When one gives thanks for something not yet visible, it is a declaration of belief in its existence. It is a statement to the subconscious that the thing is already yours. The subconscious does not debate, it responds. So, gratitude becomes a magnet, a force that draws the unseen into the seen. Just as imagination is the blueprint of creation, feeling is the lifeblood that animates it. Without feeling, a vision is lifeless, but with feeling it becomes a living thing, pulsing within the subconscious, eager to be expressed. When thought and feeling are united in harmony, the creative power within is stirred into action. The result is not determined by effort alone, but by the emotional reality sustained within. The question then is not what is wanted, but what is felt. And if the feeling does not match the desire, the feeling must change first. Through deliberate inner work, imagining the outcome and feeling it as true, one trains the subconscious to reflect a new version of reality. The emotion is the invitation. The sustained feeling is the command. This is the path to transformation. The feeling is the secret not because it is mysterious, but because it is the forgotten key. To feel as though the desire is already fulfilled is to impress that truth upon the deepest part of the mind. And once impressed, it must be expressed. If you'd like help compiling these speeches into a full piece, or need visuals or voiceover script ideas for a video, feel free to ask. All creation begins within. What the world sees as chance or luck is in truth the outpicturing of an inner state held with conviction. Whether it be the manifesting of wealth, health, love, or even something as improbable as a lottery win, the outer result is secondary. The cause is always internal. The imagination is the workshop of reality, and the feelings we attach to our thoughts are the tools that shape it. One who truly understands this law no longer chases outcomes, but turns inward, selecting the desired state and living from it. To dwell in the end, to persist in the assumption, and to clothe each thought in the emotion of certainty, this is the secret behind every so-called miracle. There is no power outside of the consciousness that brings anything to pass. The law responds not to words, but to belief, not to effort, but to alignment. When inner conviction matches the desire, the unseen must become seen. There is no exception, no delay, and no need for proof. The law works with mathematical precision, guided by feeling and sustained by faith. So the question is never whether the desire is too large or the odds too small. The only question is, can you feel it real? Can you walk through your day as though it is already done? Can you think, feel, and act from the version of you who already possesses it? Because when you do, the world must shift, reality must bend, and the thing you sought will become the life you live, not by accident, but by law.